Hey YouTube, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you my second ever created stage. I will walk you through the gameplay loop, how it plays, and give you a little bit of advice on how to create a game like this yourself. Also, I will go a little bit into detail on my struggles, what was actually new for me when I made the stage, and what has changed because I created this game now almost 2 weeks ago. And since the release of the game, actually quite a bit has changed. So for now, let's jump into the game and then see what it's like. For starters, we are greeted with a little pop-up text. The secret awaits. 7 hidden treasures lie within, and can you find them all? It's just a little hint to the guide player that there's actually collectibles. It is indicated also here with the 7 circles. And the stage was inspired by the Super Mario series. There is little coin blocks and enemies you have to fight, stuff that you can collect, and it is a 2D game. Well, 2.5D, but you have 2 skills. One is your pole arm, and the next one would be an extra jump that you can also activate while you're in the air. As you can see, there's hillagers, and when you kill them, they fly very dramatically into the screen. So, like I said, there's a lot of things to explore, and I wanted to guide you a little bit through my thought process and why these things exist. And these blocks, you can actually jump on them, and they will give you coins and have this little cute animation. There's some hidden treasures you can find and open, and everything you basically interact with will increase your score as depicted at the top of the screen. Since I reached creator level 4, I'm also able to implement some achievements, which you will see later on. So for now, let's continue a little bit, collect the coin. Right over here in the next section, you can already see another little feature, which I thought would be quite complicated to make, but it actually turned out to be pretty simple, because you can jump through these platforms, which usually, when you jump against boxes, well, you cannot jump through them. There's a little hidden chest over here. So, I will show you later how I made these platforms. And as to not spoil the whole game, I will only show partial gameplay over here. There's the first achievement, the Slayer, which will give you a neat little text message so you can actually see that you reached those achievements. And here, if you haven't seen it, there's the bouncy mushroom from my tutorial. There's some moving platforms, also quite classic in Super Mario games. Here's some rotating platforms, and these were actually quite a headache to implement. And like I said, in order for me not to spoil the whole stage, we'll go back to the editor. What you cannot see right now is I actually disabled all the objects that do not have any models in order to make it not too cluttered. But as you can see, there's quite a lot going on here. And these big red boxes you see, these are actually collider boxes. And with these, I limit my character to only be able to run sideways. I can show you how that looks. There's only a limited amount of space I have to walk. And these are achieved with the collider boxes you just saw. And now we come to like one of the first very huge challenges. I cannot move through here, and technically neither can enemies. It was actually quite a headache to get these hillagers to fly off the screen while keeping this collider box. Another big challenge I faced when making this was actually how to implement these bouncy mushrooms. Now, in order for these bouncy mushrooms to work, you need these disruptor devices. And since this was my first time using disruptor devices, I really had to wrap my head around how they work, especially because they are also used in wind currents. And I haven't shown you in the main playthrough, but I will show it to you right now. So all of the wind currents in my stage are meant to lift you back up if you fall, but they only activate after you find the corresponding elemental orbs. For example, one of those orbs is located down here. Now, things that were actually much easier to implement than I initially thought would be the coin blocks and the platform where you can jump through. This is the coin block, and in order for the coin block to do what I wanted to do, I have a basic motion device which uses a one-way path. There's just 2 points in there, and if we play that animation, it goes up a little bit and then it goes down and spins. So in order to signal the player that it has already been used, like the front side unused is the eyes, and then it spins and you can no longer see the eyes. Therefore you know the coin blocks are actually already used. I thought it was quite neat because I really liked the feature in Super Mario. I thought it would be quite hard to implement. Let's see, what else can we talk about? There's platforms that move up and down, platforms that move left and right. We have a little destructible, the bouncy mushroom, a coin box, a coin. So there's actually multiple versions of jump through. At first I wanted to use the green ones, but I thought it were just too jarring to look at. So in the end I decided to use these. And in order to make these work, I basically just disabled the native collision and attached a little script that uses this collision trigger box. And when you jump into this collision trigger box, it activates the basic model again, and therefore we can jump from the bottom and no longer fall through the platform. That's basically all there is to it. So in order to make this game a proper jump and run game, like Super Mario, I kind of had to use something that's called a unit status, which if we look at the character, you will see right here in the edit character tab. You have the super jump and the stamina no longer decreases. I thought it was quite useless to make a jump and run with stamina, so I just removed it. And also I implemented the super jump in order to have further jump capabilities. Actually, something unexpected happened to me. That's why this is my second game. It's actually a learning experience for me and hopefully for you as well. A unit status goes away from the character when the character dies. So in the first day when I released the game, I had people tell me, oh, this game's impossible to solve. How are you supposed to make the jumps? And I was like, what do you mean how am I supposed to make the jumps? It's the easiest jumps ever. It's supposed to be casual. It turns out that you lose the status effect as soon as when your character dies. And since I allow multiple people to go into the stage together and they can kill each other, people often just tend to brawl it out for the first 2 to 3 minutes, use the status effect, and then they can no longer clear the stage. So in order to mitigate that issue, I added a little script which is just called ensure unit status, and it will basically reapply the unit status whenever a character dies. So what else were kind of challenging? There's a lot of boxes going on for colliders, and I had several wind currents on the stage that actually carried players over the stage. So in the first day I released this, a friend came to me and said, well, I just went out of bounds. I was like, how did you manage to get out of bounds? And I thought it was a bug, but it turns out he could just fly over this. This one didn't exist back then. It was only this one, because I was like, there's no way someone jumps from here all the way up there. But it turns out, well, he made it with the wind currents I implemented. Therefore, I had to increase the ceiling. So now I believe at least nobody should be able to fly out of my stage anymore. Another thing I had to keep in mind is when people fall down, they are not supposed to fall all the way into the abyss. Therefore, as you can see, there's like these little boxes and they have one massive collision trigger box. There's like multiple of them over there. And what they do is basically when you fall down, they would just teleport the player back to the beginning. I told you earlier there was a huge challenge where when you hit the hilichurl, you saw the very over-dramatic fly animation. I really loved that, but I also wanted this to be a proper 2D game. Therefore, I somehow needed a script that actually allows me to hit the hilichurl, let him fly out, and keep the player inside. And basically what I'm doing is exactly that. I have this huge collision box that blocks the hilichurl and the player from moving out. And in my script, what I'm doing is I hit the hilichurl, I disable this collision box, and after half a second I re-enable it. And this gives me enough time for the hilichurl to fly out the stage and for my character to stay inside, is what I thought. Turns out some people manage to hit the hilichurl, sprint straight down and still run outside of the stage. So I had to fix this with another solution. And in order to actually keep the player inside, what I ended up was making another script, which is just an out-of-bounds teleport is what I call it. And on top of all these collision boxes, I also added a trigger right behind both sides. And what they do is, if a player actually manages to glitch himself past this collider box, they will run into the trigger and this trigger will look at the position of the player and put him right back into the lane. Like one design aspect I looked at right in the beginning was, where is this located? They are all on the X coordinate of 5, which is something I kept attention to when I made the stage. And this made this teleporting actually pretty easy. I think this is a good time to talk about the trailer I made for this stage. In case you haven't seen it, please check it out. Since I released this stage, there's actually quite a bit that has changed. In the beginning there was no extra jump and also there was no attacking mid-air. And I often heard people say that they moved towards the edge and then a hilichurl blocked their path and they fell straight down. So at one point this bugged me so much that I just implemented hitting enemies while in the air. Same as the double jump, and the double jump actually allowed for some extra repathing and it actually made accessing some of the collectibles much easier. But funnily enough, the only reason this one exists is because I wanted to make a Flappy Bird game. And for the Flappy Bird game, there's also a trailer, please check it out. I will probably do a stage breakdown for the Flappy Bird soonish. Also, since making this level, I reached creator level 4, which allowed me to implement achievements, which you saw earlier when I did the playtest, where I killed some enemies and I just said achievement unlocked Slayer. I thought it was pretty neat. And another thing that has changed is these coin blocks used to be much smaller, but the issue with them being smaller was that you could walk to the back of the collider box, jump, and then get stuck between the coin box and the collider, and then you would have to essentially reset the game. So last time I did my stage breakdown for the very first stage, there was like 3, 4, maybe 5 scripts. As you can see for the second stage, there's a lot more going on. So we have the bouncy mushroom I showed you earlier. We have some celebration fireworks, which I did not show you. Same as the celebration music. And I hope you can just play the stage and find out what this is about. But yeah, we have some coin collision enters. We have the collapsing stones. We have the elementals. I showed you a few of them. Well, this is just a coin cleanup. Whenever you pick up one of the coins that is located on the stage, then they actually destroy themselves. So what I do not like is when there's one centralized entity that has everything going on, I like to split things so that each entity does exactly what it needs to. So therefore you see like very minuscule scripts like destroy the coin or disable collision box, which is when we look into it, it will disable a native collision. And as you can see, there's only 3 inside of here. And this is because if we look at the game, I basically mapped out every path where an entity can fly out, and when we re-enable those collision boxes, there's only really 3 we have to look at. So back to the scripts. As we talked earlier about the ensure unit status, we can have a close look into here. It's basically, I would just query if the entity has a unit status, and if they do not have it, I would just add it. I will do this for both, and that's all this one is doing. But there's also some I'm not so proud of. So for collecting elementals, there's quite a little bit more going on. If you want me to dive deeper into every little script, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I don't want to waste too much time in here. But yeah, there's some hilly-church spawners, the coin box you can flip, which is basically, it would just look if you enter a collision box I placed underneath the coin box, and then it would just spin it. And then there's a couple more. So I hope you liked the tour into my second ever stage. If you haven't played it, please check it out. It's called Runny Jumpy on the EU server of Genshin Impact. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you need more information, if you want to have a more deeper dive into how I structure my scripts, how I implement certain mechanics, or if you in general need to know how certain things are done, then I would be glad to make more videos. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video and have a good day.